That's right. It is pregame time. Orange Blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason. How do you beat the Chargers, Mace? I want to start on the defensive side of the ball. We totally didn't talk about this, but I do want to emphasize: can this defense maintain, and can they do it in stopping the run and stopping Justin Herbert? This Chargers team is going to create a lot of complications, even though this Broncos defense is playing outstanding. So let's start there, and we'll get to the offense certainly, but for me, it's like, can this defense keep them in it? Because that Chargers offense has got some weapons.
It's got some weapons, but it's not really using all of them, especially in the pass game, to their maximum effectiveness. And in the 2 games before the bye, when the Chargers took on the Steelers and the Chiefs, even their run game lost some punch, and the Chargers only had 10 points. So they've got some weapons here, and they're developing an inside-out type of offense, inside from the offensive line out. And certainly that got them off to a really good start in the first couple of weeks. But as they're coming back from the bye, I wonder how it's going to look, because definitely the run game seemed to struggle there in losses to the Steelers and to the Chiefs. Only 61 yards on 20 carries in the loss in Pittsburgh. And then when they took on the Chiefs, only 55 yards on 24 carries for this run game. So they believe in it. They're going to lean on it. But is it all that effective? This is going to be a really interesting test for the Broncos, because I do think the Chargers may throw some curveballs at you coming out of the bye and a chance to reassess.
Yeah, one of those curveballs and a secret weapon in the ground game could be Kamani Vidal, the guy that's safety, running back, singer, amazing, and someone we haven't yet seen. Gus Bus is banged up for them. No Gus Edwards. At least we're assuming that on Saturday. So J.K. Dobbins, Kamani Vidal as a secret weapon coming out of a bye. That's the weird thing, too, here, Mace, is like, I know what they did. I don't know what they're going to do, because they're coming out of a bye, and they might have new wrinkles like a Kamani Vidal.
Yeah, and to this point, I mean, by the way, the great nephew of Henry Aaron, so got a Braves hat on with the logo that
very good
that Henry Aaron wore, but we haven't seen him in the regular season yet. Yeah. So this is, a guy who's kind of hard to pigeonhole, but a secret weapon. I get the sense you really liked him coming out in the draft, the way you're talking about him.
Well, and the way that they declared him as a back, you could have made him a safety. It's kind of like how Javonte had played linebacker, right? And it's like, okay, well, you get that sort of mentality, and you get that now running the ball at you. So a hard hitter and another hard charger. We love the reclamation that J.K. Dobbins has done coming back from his Achilles. Mm-hmm. But it's like, okay, if they don't have Gus Edwards, then the next man up is that rookie, and he's pretty good.
He's pretty good, but we don't know. But the unknown can be dangerous. And
yes,
what we do know about the Chargers is they are willing to commit to the ground game, even when it's not getting results. What we also know is that the bye week should make this Chargers unit healthier up front, because, of course, Joe Alt did not play for the Chargers when they took on the Chiefs and lost right before the bye week. Rashawn Slater did not play in that same game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Looks like both have been practicing this week, so that changes things. And as Jonah Ellis told us this week, you got to be on your P's and Q's when you're facing arguably the best set of tackles in the NFL.
Yeah, they're very patient. You can tell that, it's almost like they play like they've been in the league for a lot of years. So you can tell they're patient. They're not panicking, and they don't give in to all the stutters and stuff. So you really got to attack them and force them to shoot their hands.
It's a good way of putting it. Like they're savvy. Now, Rashawn Slater, a 4-year veteran, so I know we talked about the offensive line on an earlier show and how you can continue to develop, and that's developing, and that's true. But Rashawn Slater's been a starter since the word go when he came out of Northwestern. So you're not going to surprise him, but when you can say the same thing about Joe Alt coming out of Notre Dame, rookie, third career start, and boy, before he got injured, first couple of games, man, he looked dominant. He looked like an immediate out of the box Pro Bowler. Honestly, when I watched him in the first game and how dominant he was, I'm like, man, the last time I saw a tackle who looked this ready to go coming into the NFL was a guy that we know around here, I would argue should be in the Broncos Ring of Fame. That's Ryan Clady.
Yeah. And that's wonderful because Clady was awesome right from the jump. Guess who else they got to deal with? Because we haven't even got to Justin Herbert yet. Now, Vance Joseph talked about him, but Mace, I know Quentin Johnston's done more this year. Like they kind of figured out that code. He was a first-round receiver from TCU that wasn't really doing anything. And then Harbaugh gets here and he's like, hey, we're going to use you differently. And it's worked. So we look at, gone are the days of Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Those guys are long gone. Quentin Johnston kind of leads the way there. You got PS2, but most importantly, you got Justin Herbert still. They run the ball a lot, so it's like limiting Herbert. He's limited himself. What was that, high ankle sprain, right? So he's limited himself by his own injury, but it's still the respect for that young quarterback is off the charts because we know even in an offense where he's handing the ball off a little bit more than he used to, Justin Herbert is one of the most outstanding quarterbacks in the league.
No doubt. Now you mentioned Quentin Johnston. It started to come together for him right around the time the Broncos played the Chargers last year. Like he started to get going in the previous game against New England, but then the positive of a loss that basically ended the Chargers season, because of course that was when Justin Herbert got injured, and that's why you saw Easton Stick at quarterback when the Chargers came to Denver for the return match on New Year's Eve. But this was the game and the moment that Quentin Johnston started to come alive there in the fourth quarter. A couple of catches from Easton Stick on back-to-back plays that accounted for 79 yards. And the Chargers were waiting for a moment where the promise that they saw in Quentin Johnston would manifest. It happened there. And while he hasn't been massively productive so far this season, he does in terms of catches and yards. He does have 3 touchdowns, had a couple of touchdowns there against the Panthers back in week 2. That being said, when you look at how strong Denver is at corner 1, 2, 3, including slot corner Jaquan McMillan, I would argue the Broncos have the best 1, 2, 3 set of corners in football right now.
Yes.
And you never want to say an embarrassment of riches because you've got to play all those 3 guys. So it's not like you're overflowing. You need 3 good corners, including the slot corner, to succeed in the NFL.
Yeah, you need 3 good corners to succeed in the NFL. And Mace,
Yes.
I'll say this about Jaquan. You got Ladd McConkey coming up this week.
Yeah.
So Quentin Johnston, PS2 on him. We'll play Vance Joseph talking about PS2. But like Ladd McConkey's out there too. You know, they've got more weapons than you think in a run-heavy Jim Harbaugh thing.
More than you think. And Ladd McConkey, with respect to Quentin Johnston, Ladd McConkey is the one who maybe he discombobulates a little bit. We saw he got off to that. He's gotten off to a good start. He's gotten steadily better over the course of the season too. His biggest game was the most recent game.
Yep. And we saw him at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they've got some weapons. They've got Justin Herbert, and on Thursday, Vance Joseph talked about facing Justin Herbert.
He's the same player. I mean, he's a big guy, athletic. He can make every single throw. He can scramble on third downs to make first downs. But it's a different system. You know, it's a run first system. It's a two-back system that most teams don't play with fullbacks anymore. But it's different for him. But it allows him to get a clean picture in the pass game. You know, because to stop this unit, it's got to be a heavy box and single high coverages. So it cleans the quarterback's reads. You know, so he's not seeing single shell coverage. He's not seeing simulated pressures a lot on first, second down because it's heavy run. So it cleans his reads for him. But it's a different offense. It's not what we've seen from these guys in the last couple of years. It is run first, run second, and quick game and play action pass. So it's a different, unique, old school, I would say, offensive football team.
Old school.
Now, let me ask you this. They've gone, obviously, old school with it. Justin Herbert, 91 passes so far this year, then a couple more for backup Taylor Heineke. So it's the Chargers team with 102 pass plays and 115 runs. So they're running more, and that includes scrambles and kneel downs, but they're running more often than they pass.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the most effective thing the Chargers can be doing?
Well, no, but it's what Harbaugh's going to do.
Yeah,
right.
That's what I mean.
That's what they're going to do.
It's building to something. It's building to a team that actually has the ability to take the pressure off of Justin Herbert. But is this making the most of what they have at the moment? I think that's a pretty valid question right now with the Chargers as you watch them, especially since, you know, we saw the first couple of games, J.K. Dobbins went off, right?
Yep.
Against Pittsburgh, against Kansas City, much less productive, much tougher sledding against those two fronts. So this is such an interesting game because we know what Jim Harbaugh wants to do, what he's trying to make this team into. Think of it how, even though you're dealing with a quarterback at a different stage in his career, think of it how Gary Kubiak kind of insisted on some things when he came in 2015 with Peyton Manning, and it seemed like it didn't have value in the summer, like you were asking the square peg to be jammed into a round hole. And then when you got to the playoffs, okay, this is why we were doing all this.
Right.
Because when Manning was faltering and he was, you know, working his way back from the foot issue, and really all he had left was his mind and the body was betraying him, the offense was built in a way that it took the pressure off of him.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it needed to deliver in the passing game, it could, because you had to play them honest. And why I think the evolution of this Chargers team is going to be so fascinating, because they can't do all the things they need to do right now. But what does this look like in 2 months? What does it even look like on Sunday coming out of the bye?
All right.
I mean, this is a classic moment where you see a curveball thrown at you.
Yep.
That you've prepared for one thing and something else. And, you know, we heard about it from Brandon Jones on Monday. In that case, the thing that changed the dynamic for the Raiders was not having Devontae Adams. So how is this offense really going to look without that alpha threat there? And it was a heavy dose of Brock Bowers, and it took about a quarter and a half before the Broncos adjusted. When they did, they were absolutely dominant. So I would not be at all surprised, Cecil, if the Chargers jump out 7-0 in this game while the Broncos defense figures out what the Chargers are doing, because I expect something different. And maybe, even though it seems counterintuitive against the Broncos corners, maybe it's challenging vertically with Quentin Johnston to set things up. Or maybe it's challenging Jaquan McMillan with a heavy dose of McConkey right at him on some slants.
Oh, yeah. They'll test him there for sure. It is Orange and Blue today. It's our Saturday pregame show. Mace, we got about 5 minutes to talk about the offense, so let's jump in. and see what Marvin Mims can do. Joe Lombardi actually talking about Marvin Mims. Yeah, we are waiting. Judge Smalls, we're waiting. Want to set up this Lombardi thing on Mims because everyone wants to know, like, why isn't Marvin getting more?
Yeah, and it comes off of a week where Marvin Mims did have some involvement. I mean, the jet sweep there, we're watching it like, hey, this is great. Where's this been?
Right. There's ways to use him.
It worked better than it did with Jerry Jeudy. Remember, the Broncos kept trying that over and over with Jerry Jeudy. Maybe it just worked better with Marvin Mims.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So can he get more? It's something Coach Lombardi talked about on Thursday. Here's what Coach had to say.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think every week we have plays that are designed to try to get the ball in his hands. And sometimes the defense doesn't allow you to do it. Sometimes you just don't get to it on the call sheet. You might have a play, and as the game's going on, you're like, the way the end's playing, I don't know if we like this play. So it's just a lot of things that go with it. But he's always a guy that, every time you watch him return a punt or a kickoff, it highlights that, he's a guy we like to get the ball to him.
Well, the other thing is and this is where maybe it goes hand in hand. You want to build confidence in Marvin Mims. You have to give him some chances on offense. But the last 3 games, Cease, he has 86 yards on 4 punt returns. So he's gotten, back up to that astounding average that he had last year, at least in the last 3 games, which was north of 20. His season-long average is 15 yards per punt return, or his career-long average is 15 yards per punt return. His average the last 3 games is north of 21 yards per punt return. So what you're hoping maybe is that builds the confidence and unlocks some things on offense, because when you're looking at being without Josh Reynolds for this game, everybody moves up. And even though his skill set doesn't necessarily provide an apples to apples replacement, if you put him out there and give him some snaps that Josh Reynolds would have gotten, there should be some more chances for him, at least in the short term. Let's see what's there. Let's see if he can figure that out.
Well, let's see if a tight end can be used. Now, on Monday in his conference call, Adam Troutman talked about Lucas Kroll. Before we get to the clip, Mace, somebody, please, Bueller, like literally Bueller, like please, somebody use a tight end. Yeah, can we please use a tight end? Somebody, sometime, anybody?
Broncos have the least productive tight end group in the NFL in terms of pass catching right now. The only tight end group in the NFL heading into week 6 that didn't have 100 yards in receiving as a collective. Greg Dulcich inactive last week. He tried Lucas Kroll out. He had a catch, did some decent work in the blocking game as well. Also played on special teams. Greg Dulcich has never played a special team snap in his life in the NFL. So maybe Kroll is a better fit right now after sitting on the shelf the first 4 weeks. But if it's not there, at what point do you give Donald Parham a look? And do you do that before the trade deadline? Do you want to know exactly what you have in that room before you make a potential move on the market? Because I think the Broncos are going to be buyers this year rather than sellers. Nice change. They've been sellers for most of the last several years. But you don't buy until you know exactly what you have on your own shelf back in the store, or back in the storeroom, so to speak, right? You don't start buying until you know what you already have. And if you've already got what you need, you stand pat. So right now, I think it's about finding out what Lucas Kroll can do. And if he can't deliver, maybe you find out what Donald Parham can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you still have a couple more options to look at. Let's play this Troutman on Kroll clip real quick before we're out of here today. But Troutman talked about this on Monday. And again, we're still kind of waiting.
He has a great personality in that he's always up. Like, he's always got high energy. He's very competitive. And you could see it during the practices, when he's inactive and he's on scout team, and making sure he's staying ready in case, he ever does come up, or did come up, obviously. So I think the growth more so for him is mentally. Obviously, I've been around him for a while, so I know that from firsthand experience, but just like things that he's been able to learn and, you know, I've been able to help him with, Declan's been able to help him with in these last, what's he in his third year? So, throughout these last 3 years, he's really grown from that standpoint.
Growing mentally.
Yes. And Adam Troutman's seen the growth all the way through, of course, because he was around Lucas Kroll in New Orleans for a year. And the mental side's got to be right if you're going to play tight end, because it's another position it works hand in hand with the offensive line. You got to be involved in the blocking. Like look last week about in terms of when the Broncos had Adam Troutman ISO'd on Max Crosby. Yes, it didn't go well, but that's the sort of trust that Sean Payton wants to have in his tight ends, to where matchup wise, if there is an isolation with a tight end on an edge, he has that option of doing that. That's what he's looking for from the tight end position, at least the non-joker. The joker in space, I mean, you and I had that conversation a couple of days ago. What if A.T. Perry emerges as that guy? Because when A.T. Perry was rattling off the positions he might play, he said tight end in the midst of that. Like he's willing to do that. So I feel like I'm going into coach speak here, but the whole thing is very much a work in progress. And you just hope while that you're making that work and while that progress continues, that you're talking about being able to protect Justin or not Justin Herbert, Bo Nix effectively. I got my Oregon quarterbacks mixed up because we talk about Herbert so much.
Right.
Couple of ducks quacking away at quarterback in this game.
And what could be a low-scoring and hard-fought contest. But Mace, before we're out here today, we need people's help on YouTube. Thanks for watching. But how do they help us, Mace?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you
never miss vid.
That's right. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. Matt Cecil Lammey saying OBT's BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.